Hey everyone. So, Julian Assange. We just had the bail hearing at Westminster Magistrates Court. So not the Old Bailey, which is the central criminal court for England and Wales. And the judge denied him his bail application. He's going back to Belmarsh while the US appeals the decision from Monday where the same judge, Judge Barretza, Vanessa Barretza, the US is appealing her decision from Monday not to extradite Julian Assange based on his health reasons, right? So I'm going to break down, because I attended the hearing remotely now via video. I watched the whole thing and reported live on it. So I'm going to break down to you the whole, all of the proceedings. Okay, just give me 1 second over here so I can pull this up for you. All right. By the way, we have 112 people watching. Make sure you hit the like button because, you know, the YouTube algorithm censors real news. So, all right, let's go through this. Again, this is a really, you know, crap decision. And by the same judge, no less, right? So let's go through it. Right, so as I said, this was not at the Old Bailey, this was Westminster Magistrates Court. I gave some background information first about, you know, the previous bail things with Julian and the special administrative measures and the conditions in Belmarsh prison. I was trying to explain why it's imperative that he be granted bail, right? Yes, I said the British way, granted. No, it's really important to understand this because it's not, oh, he's just going back to prison. No. This is a Category A, maximum security, men's prison on the outskirts of London. Man, I went there. You remember I was there after the hearing in October, right? So, I mean, this place is a hellhole, okay? Just by reputation, it's already known as Britain's equivalent of Guantanamo Bay. This is where they send all the worst of the worst. So why is he there? Why is a journalist being placed in a maximum security prison? He's a journalist. He's not a danger to society, but he might be to UK and US governments who have things to hide. So that's why they put him there, right? Not to mention the fact that, you know, you have a COVID outbreak, which we'll get to in a second, and all these things. And so, you know, I was there. I filmed this video when I was there, and this car tried to stop me. And you'll know none of them were wearing masks, huh? I was there around lunchtime. This was a Sunday, and this was the week the hearing ended. It says the day right there, October 4th. So, man, I'm watching all the guards coming out at lunchtime. None of them wearing masks. And we have figures in a second, which we'll get to. So I was just giving some background information about why it's imperative he be released. In case the political nature of the trial was not obvious to you, the health reasons alone should convince anyone that he be released. Yes? So anyway, let's get to the proceedings. I also highlighted the comments by UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, Neil Smeltzer, right? Because he visited Assange with 2 doctors, and he issued a new statement yesterday. So he said, Mr. Assange must now be immediately set free, rehabilitated, and compensated for the abuse and arbitrariness he has been exposed to. Even with a pending appeal, his continued isolation in a high-security prison is completely unnecessary and disproportionate. There is no justification whatsoever for preventing him from awaiting the final judgment in a setting where he can recover his health and live a normal family and professional life. 100%. So the prosecution, they started out, okay, we had, Assange comes in, you know, he gives his name and date of birth, and then the prosecution, they started. And we had a little glitch there with the audio. No one in the courtroom could hear anything. But, you know, the prosecution, they started out by repeating the same lies we've been hearing the whole time, right? That, you know, Julian Assange, he's a high risk of absconding bail. And then she starts going through the whole time. This is Dobbins, by the way, right? Dobbins for the prosecution. So she starts talking about Snowden, that, WikiLeaks and Assange, they aided and abetted Snowden in evading the authorities in Hong Kong. Again, I don't really know that that's a crime under any either US or UK jurisdiction, but nonetheless, they brought it up again. And they started talking about how, you know, Assange and WikiLeaks have encouraged people to steal government information, blah, 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 blah. You know the lies. You know, we're not. She just brought up the whole rap sheet once again. And she talks about how they plan to get Snowden out of the airport in Moscow, right? And move him to Latin America. Now, that's a very interesting thing, by the way. And which Glenn highlighted. Okay, Glenn Greenwald. Look, he quote tweeted me. Look what he said. Note: the U.S. admitted Snowden tried to leave Russia to go to Latin America to obtain asylum with WikiLeaks' help. Do you see how often U.S. officials and media lied to you, claiming for years Snowden was a Russian spy when they trapped him there? Exactly. This is one of the biggest smears, the biggest lies against Snowden, that he's a Russian spy. It's one of the things they used to discredit him and the disclosures that he worked on with Glenn, right? They say, oh, look, he's in Moscow. He's a Russian asset. No, they trapped him there. They canceled his passport. He couldn't leave the airport. Okay. And he was not on his way originally to Russia. This was just a transit on his way to Latin America. So, the U.S. prosecutor saying that today in the court, but you won't hear CNN or MSNBC or anyone in the mainstream media correcting previous statements about that. No, you won't. Nonetheless, it's very important to note that. Okay. But in any case, the prosecution, they were just going through the whole rap sheet and saying that this should leave the court in no doubt as to Assange's resources and abilities to arrange flight to another country, right? So they're trying to portray him as some kind of kingpin, world mob figure, whatever. And then she continues, Dobbins, for the prosecution. She says that other states will offer Assange protection, and she referred to the fact that the president of Mexico offered Assange asylum after Monday's judgment. This is very important, right? Because this just happened 2 days ago. And she's misquoting that deliberately. And so is the media. They've misquoted that deliberately. And the defense clarified what that offer was. In a second, we'll get to it and I'll break it down for you. But just keep in mind that she brought that up as a reason why Assange should be denied bail, because she's saying that, oh, look, just like he went and applied for political asylum in Ecuador at the Ecuadorian embassy, which is his right under international law. I don't even see why that's controversial. It's like, look, he took advantage of his rights. Okay. Yeah, you're pursuing a political witch hunt against him. Of course he's going to apply for asylum. What's so surprising about this? Nonetheless, she's trying to use that as ammunition to say, look, now Mexico's offering him asylum. Again, misquoting, and he's going to go and do the same. He's going to run off to other countries because other countries have offered him amnesty and asylum, okay? So that's what the prosecution was saying today. They said Assange doesn't even need to arrange anything. He simply need walk into another embassy. And then, again, she goes on to say, Dobbins, he is capable of going to almost any length to avoid that possibility, which is extradition to the U.S. And I added, I wonder why. I think anyone would, facing 175 years in a United States federal supermax. But as the defense is about to highlight, these conditions have changed, right? Which needs to be taken into consideration because as of now, Assange is not facing extradition. I know we still have the appeal, but the judge ruled against it. So he has no motive for that, to run away to an embassy or to arrange flight, as the prosecution is alleging. Okay, so we'll get to that. Now, anyway, the prosecution referred to this previous court ruling in 2010 where Assange was granted bail, okay? And I pulled up the article for you. This is just one of those from The Guardian, right? So this is when he was granted bail in December, I think it was, right? Yes, there it is, 16th December. And there was a £200,000 cash deposit. They referred to this, and they referred to the judgment. So the prosecution talked about the judgment in that ruling, granting bail to Assange, and said that at the time, the court ruled in his favor, and that there was good faith that he would come back, okay, and that he would not abscond bail because this would, tarnish his reputation in the eyes of his supporters, et cetera, et cetera. So there was a lot of money at stake, his reputation, et cetera, et cetera. That's what the prosecution was referring to, and their point was, despite all of that, he still didn't show up. Now they say he jumped bail, but we all know he applied for asylum. It's not the same thing. So nonetheless, that's what she was bringing up. Okay. And Dobbins, she goes on to say, Mr. Assange regards himself above the law and no cost is too great in terms of him avoiding being sent to the United States. She talked also about the Swedish prosecution. She claimed that more or less that, it was dropped because he absconded bail allegedly and took refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy. Again, this is not true. You have to, there are a lot of, again, I'm not an expert on the Swedish case, but I do know that case was opened, dropped, reopened, and dropped. Okay? And it was not on the grounds that Assange took refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy. It was that they could not find sufficient evidence. So she omitted that. That's important to note. She didn't mention that today. Another thing she said is that, oh, look, he's cost the UK taxpayer so much money because we've had to keep the Ecuadorian embassy under surveillance. Oh, yeah? You want to talk about surveillance in the Ecuadorian embassy? I want to know the full, give me the full receipt with UC Global included. Cards on the table, madam. Okay? You want to talk about surveillance in the Ecuadorian embassy? Let's go. Give us the full bill. Like if you're gonna complain that Assange cost the taxpayer money because of surveillance, give us the real figure. Don't hide. Don't be shy. Yeah, but she didn't bring that part up, did she? Now, you know, of course, when Assange initially took refuge, you go look at the pictures. I've shown them to you. You had an army of police outside London Metropolitan, right? Man, they were guarding that thing like a fortress. You would think Hitler was in the embassy or something. It's absurd. It's absurd. This guy is a journalist, for fuck's sake, and they treat him like a violent criminal or a mass murderer. Actually, worse. I'll get to that again in a second. This is obscene. They had an army of police outside, and of course they kept it under surveillance 24/7. So in case he set foot outside the embassy, they would grab him. So, okay, so we're talking about the UK government here, the London Metropolitan Police, not just the UC Global spying through the US, which was inside the embassy. Okay, we're talking about outside surveillance and the teams that were dedicated to the 24/7 monitoring and all the costs associated. So she was trying to make the argument, oh, look, he's cost us so much money. We can't let him out on bail again because he's going to cost us even more money. And by the way, interestingly enough, I've always remembered this figure in my mind from 10 years ago when Abu Qatada, this Al-Qaeda terrorist who was also in Belmarsh, when he was allowed out on house arrest, the UK government was spending £500,000 a week to keep him under surveillance in house arrest. So I want to ask you a question now. If the UK government is willing to spend £500,000 a week to keep an Al-Qaeda cleric nice and comfy in his house, well, I mean, they didn't want to. They really wanted to extradite him badly, right? But nonetheless, they had to foot that bill. Why can't they afford the same comfort to Assange, who's a journalist, a harmless journalist? Because it's political, and they have no interest or incentive to do so, do they? So money is really the last issue here. But nonetheless, I need to debunk all of these arguments because it's very important. Because, you know, if people even hear about this stuff, it's really important that we set the record straight. Okay? So the prosecution also referred to the fact that Assange was given a diplomatic passport. Now, this is very interesting to me because, you know, my parents served as UN peacekeepers and well, peacekeeping and observer missions. That's the official title, right? So they had diplomatic passports at one point, and, you know, they have a UN one for couples. Two people, one passport. Anyway, so I was curious about that. I asked Fidel in court when we were together in London. I asked him about that because I was interested in it. And he told me that they gave him a passport for Assange. Because remember, Fidel Narvaez, he's the former consul at the embassy, right? So they gave Julian Assange a passport, diplomatic passport. But the UK refused to register him as a diplomat. Now, the convention governing, you know, diplomatic immunity and what you can and can't do, because you're not allowed to arrest diplomats, you can't stop them or search their cars or whatever, things like that. You know, this was to afford them protections and stop governments from accusing diplomats of other governments of being spies, right? Back in the Cold War. So we can talk about the Vienna Convention and whether that would have been violated had, you know, Julian Assange stepped outside and they arrested him. I'm pretty sure yes. Regardless, my point here is that the UK did not care. And I heard that straight from Fidel. Okay, so he told me the UK refused to recognize Julian Assange as a diplomat, even though he had a diplomatic passport. So I don't know why the prosecution is bringing this up, because the UK was bent on arresting him as soon as he stepped outside, diplomatic passport or not. Okay, they were going to arrest him. They were going to violate the Vienna Convention. So I don't know what she's talking about here. This makes no difference. The UK government was going to arrest him. We know this. They refused to recognize him as a diplomat. So this is a moot point. Okay, and this does not mean that he would have absconded bail or something. It's absurd. Again, I pointed that out here, and now she started downplaying the COVID outbreak, and I can't believe my ears, and I'm still astonished that she said this, but I mean, she tried to downplay the suicide risk as well in U.S. prisons. Like, oh, it's impossible to commit suicide. What? Yo, you got suicide problems in Belmarsh, never mind the United States. Okay? And again, we're going to get to this because this is the biggest point. But she tried to downplay that. Completely absurd, because this is the whole foundation of the ruling on Monday. Although it shouldn't have been the only one. She said that Mr. Assange's mental health wasn't as severe, as claimed by the experts, and that was a view that was confirmed by the prosecution's experts. Again, I went through this with you guys when I was covering the medical testimonies, which spanned 3 days or something like that. The prosecution in total called 2 witnesses, maybe 3 if I'm not mistaken. But in regards to the medical testimonies, they called 2. Fazel, he teaches at Oxford, I think. Yeah, he's a psychiatrist from Oxford. And they also called, the other guy's name escapes me, but they called 2 witnesses, right? To try and debunk the testimony from Koppelman, from all the doctors that the defense called, right? The defense called in total like 40 witnesses, okay? And she mentions this, the judge, in her judgment over here. So my point, what I want to highlight, look at what Fazel said. Fazel's assessment was that Assange's moderate depression, he didn't agree with there we go, Dealey, that's the other name that I forgot, and Koppelman, and he said the word high in high suicide risk, to him, that meant a greater suicide risk of persons within the same age group in the prison's general population. I mean, that is an obscenely restrictive definition right there. That's ridiculous. So they tried to downplay that, and the judge did not believe that. Remember, in the judgment on Monday, and I'm going to show that to you in a second, the judge did not accept what the medical experts that the prosecution called said. Okay, she sided with the medical experts that the defense called. So Dobbin concluded by saying the factors preventing bail are insurmountable. Then we had Fitzgerald rising for the defense, okay? And he made the case, again, this was very compelling, that Assange has no reason to abscond. He's no reason to go anywhere, okay? As he says here, the ground for extradition is gone. That would be a reason for them to at least attain, for them meaning Assange, to at least attain conditional liberty, okay? The defense, Fitzgerald, also referred to the latest statement from outgoing prosecutor from the Eastern District of Virginia. Again, the Eastern District Court of this, well, it's called the Espionage Court, right? That's the nickname for it. The Eastern District Court of Virginia, because that's where they filed all these indictments against Snowden, against Chelsea Manning, against Julian Assange, against Gary McKinnon, who I interviewed. All of them. They all come from this place. Because that way they guarantee that the jury pool is going to be made up of people who work in the intelligence community. Very nice to get convictions. You know why? Because the people sitting in the jury, as I said, they either work at the CIA, they have family in the CIA, they hate the guts of everybody who's being indicted there. Okay? So, again, pay attention. This is breaking news from last night. Stella Morris posted it, right? Assange's partner. She posted this, and it was referred to by the defense today in court. The outgoing prosecutor from that very same espionage court, his name is Zachary Terwilliger. He said it's uncertain as to whether Biden would continue the extradition against Assange. Assange case has already consumed years of work. That's what he said. Now, again, I have my reservations. I know Kristen Hnafson, he also talked about it just now outside the court. I'll play you a statement in a bit. But I doubt that personally. When I was talking to Kevin Gostola last week, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said something along the lines of there's a bigger chance of Trump pardoning Assange than Biden dropping the charges. I agree with that. That's just my opinion. I because I see no difference between, the regimes. These people are out to get blood. They want to go after Assange because he exposed their war crimes. And you have to remember that was under Biden and Obama that they tortured Chelsea Manning. And the prosecution, if you take their word, Obama did not specifically rule out prosecuting Assange. Okay? So you're telling us overtly that Obama and Biden, consequently, as vice president, had no problem and might have very well gone after Assange. That's what the prosecution wants us to know. So I have no reason to believe, based on the behavior of the U.S. empire, that they would let this go and let this slide easily. Nonetheless, this is a valid argument, a very important one for the defense to make, because it happened just now. This guy is, above Kronberg, who is the AUSA Kronberg, the federal prosecutor. He has an even higher position and standing. He signed the goddamn thing back then. So it is very important to take that into account, that the U.S. might drop the charges. Who knows? It's not like some journalist saying it or some political figure. No, this guy was involved in the case. He's from that espionage court. So again, it carries some weight. I'm just reporting what was said. So there you go. Whether you believe that or not, up to you. But the defense did make that argument, and I think it is a very valid one, and of course should have been brought forward. But again, there's more than that. Fitzgerald went on to say that for the first time in all these years, Assange is entitled to discharge, and the burden is now on the prosecution, right? And why is this important? Because it massively removes any reason to abscond. We say Assange now has every reason to stay in this jurisdiction where he has the protection of the rule of law and this court's decision, and to abide by every bail condition, however stringent, okay? The judgment also recognizes the importance of human interaction regarding his mental health. That's true, it does. So, again, he's trying to say here that not only does Assange have no reason to run away or abscond bail like the prosecution claims, because she ruled in his favor 2 days ago, but regarding his mental health, which again formed the basis of her judgment on Monday, being with his family, being with his children, being with Stella, his partner, this is crucial. Of course, I mean, it goes without saying. It goes without saying to anyone, to have your family, to be able to be with them, reunited, to live with them. Of course, never mind, especially Julian Assange, after being 10 years arbitrarily detained in Belmarsh prison, being threatened with 175. Yeah, it carries even more weight, right? So that's a very important point, and the judge herself noted that in the judgment, okay? I was reading it just a few moments ago, but I have so many tabs open. We got to go through them one by one, okay? So we'll get there. Now, moving on to the other arguments. So again, just to finish on this, the defense said allowing Assange out would not only alleviate mental stress, but anchor him to his family and his community. Very important point. Very good term. A totally changed position from 2012. Indeed, it is, because now, once again, like he just said, we have a ruling that is in his favor. It's not, they need to file the charges, because we have to remember when he was sentenced to 50 weeks in Belmarsh, didn't have an indictment yet. Okay? It was about Sweden. So now we had the indictment, we had the hearing, we have a ruling, and it's in his favor. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing as back then. Then Fitzgerald talked about the COVID outbreak. This is important. So he said, I understand that in Assange's wing, some 50% of people have COVID. Now the judge interrupted him because she wanted more accurate or up-to-date figures rather. And this is what happened. So Fitzgerald told her over 90 people have tested positive in House Block 1. And she asked him, where does this information come from? He told her this comes from Assange. And he then elaborated that the prison themselves, okay, Her Majesty's Prison Belmarsh, they officially confirmed 60 cases before Christmas. The judge says this runs contrary to her info. All right, so there was a bit of bustling in the courtroom about getting those figures. Prosecution interrupted what was going on. Dobbins, she interrupted. And then she said that they got an email yesterday at 22:47. I managed to remember that. So they got an email last night, the prosecution. And according to them, according to Belmarsh Prison, in that email, these are the figures from December 24th. They said that among the staff that are directly employed at Belmarsh Prison, over 80 people have tested positive for COVID. Again, you'll have to excuse me because, we're typing like maniacs. And she listed a bunch of figures, the total number of prisoners, 747, the staff, all this. So it was either 83 or 85. I can't recall correctly, but it's over 80 people who are directly employed at that prison who have COVID. Okay? Keep that in mind. Prisoners, 3, according to them, just 3. I mean, I find that extremely hard to believe. Nonetheless, the judge said she will accept this information as it is the latest available. Okay? So I find that really hard to believe. 3 prisoners. Also, that is, I don't care about the prisoners alone, man. The staff interact with the prisoners, do they not? Like that's not okay that you have, it's okay. Like we have 3 prisoners that are infected. No, you have 80 staff that have it. I saw them, goddammit. I was at the fucking prison. I was outside. I saw them walking in and out without masks. That's beyond reckless. You saw the guard who came up and talked to me. That dude did not have a mask. I mean, I took off my mask. Dude, I swear, people in the UK just don't care. I was like one of the only people walking around with a fucking mask. I took it off because I was alone. I was filming a selfie video, right? I was trying to report. The dude walks up to me not wearing a mask. I mean, you saw it. Like, I have video proof. Unless you think that I choreographed a video with a guard from Belmarsh prison. No. I mean, you saw them. This is obscene. And that is not acceptable, in my opinion. Among all the other reasons, among all the other health reasons and the political reasons, this alone, okay? So we're debunking them one by one. So over here, the defense, go back to Fitzgerald, right? Because Dobbin, she interrupted a second, but it was still time for defense. He said COVID is not our main argument. And indeed, it's not the only thing. So he talked about the ruling regarding mental health, okay, the judge's ruling, and that being detained is extremely detrimental to his mental health, and that Assange has no reason to abscond. This will be the first opportunity for him to live with his family. So, you know, I just want to highlight this here because the hypocrisy is unbelievably staggering. You're gonna see now why the judge is full of crap, because she literally contradicted herself entirely. She completely contradicted her own statement from Monday. Again, I'm repeating this. You need to understand this. Judge Baretzer denied Julian Assange bail today. She completely contradicted her own goddamn judgment from 2 days ago. 2 days ago, she said she won't extradite Assange to the US because it puts his mental health at risk. It puts his life at risk, being placed under special administrative measures under SAMS. High suicide risk. Completely detrimental to his mental health, which is what all the medical experts said in their testimonies. She agrees with them. And I'll read it to you right here. This is from her judgment. For all these reasons, I find that Mr. Assange's risk of committing suicide, if an extradition order were to be made, to be substantial. Now you're thinking, oh, she's just talking about the United States. There's no suicide risk if he goes back to Belmarsh prison. First of all, Belmarsh prison is a category A maximum security prison. They send people from Al-Qaeda there. What is he doing in Britain's equivalent of Guantanamo Bay? He is a journalist. He's not a danger to society. He's a danger to governments like the UK and the US that are hiding war crimes. He's a danger to the NSA and the CIA that are murdering people and torturing and carrying out acts of rendition. He's not a danger to society. What's he doing in that prison? That's number one. Regardless, going back to his mental health, look at this. This is from the judge. This is from 2 days ago. Seventhly, notwithstanding the strong and constant support he receives from his family and friends, Mr. Assange has remained either severely or moderately clinically depressed throughout his detention at Her Majesty's Prison Belmarsh. Okay? And she talks about the interactions he had with the prison staff, talking about how he felt despair, hopeless, and made plans to end his life. He made frequent requests for access to the prison Samaritan's phone. A razor blade was found in the cell. She knows that this man is suffering from depression and at risk of suicide. In the UK, right now, in that prison, she barred extradition based on his health, right? Because it's a risk to his life. Why is she sending him back then to Belmarsh prison? Yes, it might be a tiny bit less cruel than the prisons in the US. It's still torturous. He's still in solitary confinement. He's in his cell 24 hours a day. He can't have social visits because they've been banning them because of COVID. He can't receive any visitors, no social interactions. We have evidence, medical testimony, that he is depressed and at risk of suicide in the UK right now and has been for a long time. She knows this. She wrote that. This is bullshit, what she's doing. She knows goddamn well this man is at risk of suicide in the UK and in the US. He is being subjected to a political witch hunt. They're going after him because he exposed the CIA, he exposed the United States, he exposed all of their allies for committing war crimes. That's what this shit is about. Make no mistake, don't get it twisted 1 second. This is bullshit what she did. And remember, this is the only reason she ruled against extradition, his health. There are so many, and this is definitely valid, but she made that the pillar of her decision on Monday. Why is she going back on what she said? Why is she trying to talk out of both sides of her mouth? This is nonsense what she did today. You see that? I just read to you her judgment. Those are her words. She knows goddamn well. And by the way, that was downplayed. We heard from Dr. Koppelman, who testified. This is one of the top neuropsychiatrists in the world, not just the UK. This guy sits on the board working on the DSM manuals, all this stuff. He said that whatever Assange has told the prison doctors, right, that's an understatement of what Assange confided to him, because it's normal for prisoners not to reveal the whole truth to the doctors in the prison for fear of being placed under suicide watch or, more restrictive measures, right? So they might withhold some information. They don't want to tell the full story. They're scared of being put under, more restrictive conditions. And that's regardless. That is the case, okay, in general, and it is the case in Assange. He did withhold things from the prison staff because what he confided in Dr. Koppelman was even more concerning. So there's no doubt that this man, his health is at risk physically, mentally, and that sending him back to Belmarsh prison today was not just politically charged and motivated, but extremely dangerous to his health, physically and mentally. This is obscene. She's playing games here. Again, you don't need to be a doctor to know that. I'm giving you her own words. Her own words. And the words of doctors. No less. So nonetheless, let's continue here. So Fitzgerald, he argues that if Assange has his family and his wishes to live a sheltered life with his family, so I think I double typed there. You'll have to excuse me because, again, we're typing like maniacs in the court. I'm barely, you can't watch. Like, you're just typing the whole time. You barely have your eyes on there. So there's a lot going on. He said, if you have any residual concerns, they can be met with stringent bail conditions. He'll be under house arrest and he'll be resident with his partner, Stella Morris, and 2 children. And they've provided an address to the court. And also, I think £10,000 was the figure that they mentioned. Fitzgerald, he goes on to say, the absconsion was 8 years ago, was in a totally different situation and a totally different request and totally different ruling. Everything has changed, both in the nature of the request, right? Because that was about Sweden, and this is about the U.S. and allegedly, 1 count under the CFAA and then 17 under the Espionage Act. A different ruling of the court. Assange has a ruling now in his favor that he should not be extradited, and now the importance that he can be ruined with his family. I'm sorry, that's definitely a typo or autocorrect. Reunited with his family. My apologies. Essential to his mental health. Again, and the judge acknowledged this herself in the judgment. She knows that he needs social interaction and that being with his family is important. She knows that. And you don't need to be a rocket scientist or a neuroscientist for that matter, or a neuropsychiatrist to figure that out. Okay? So this is an essential argument. Excuse me for that typo. Again, and we want to get the information out as fast as possible. I'm sure people understand what I meant. So the defense asked the judge to consider that Assange will also be placed under real-time surveillance by wearing a GPS tag to monitor his location. Right? That's I think pretty much everyone expected that. He said that Assange has already served his full sentence for absconding back in 2012. Right? 50 weeks. Court has found that he suffers from depression and Asperger's, ASD. The court also found that this condition is alleviated by contact and support from his family. Again, it's all, sorry, my window minimized there for a second. There we go. It's all in the judgment here. Okay? This is the judge saying that I'm satisfied that Mr. Assange's suicidal impulses will come from his psychiatric diagnoses rather than his own voluntary act, as the prosecution tried to allege. Okay? Yeah? So she's fully aware of this. She is fully aware of the psychiatric and psychological conditions. Now, here we come to, sorry, the Twitter is lagging. This was a big thread, so yeah, I'm just trying to find my place again. There we go. Now we come to the question of Mexico. Why was this important? Because, again, we said earlier that the prosecution misquoted that, right? That's putting it mildly. What Mexico offered, what the Mexican president offered Assange, was asylum after after the legal proceedings are concluded. It wasn't an invitation, buenos dias, gringo, come in here, walk inside the embassy, and we're going to hide you from the United States. No, they're lying. The prosecution are fucking lying through their teeth. They're trying to paint it as though, look, Assange is going to run away again. No. Mexico said, the Mexican president said, you can have asylum even if the UK rules in your favor. And Fitzgerald explained this. He explained why. Even if the appeal by the United States is shot down and it goes to the Supreme Court and is shot down, even if all the way the judge's decision from Monday is upheld and the UK does not extradite Assange, even if the UK decides not to extradite him, that doesn't mean he's safe in other countries. Do you understand that? If tomorrow morning Assange, okay, not tomorrow morning, let's say whenever he's finally able to walk free, if he goes to France, for example, if he goes to any country with whom the United States has an extradition treaty, they can grab him. And it's the same shit all over again. Do you understand? So Mexico's point was that we'll give you asylum even if the UK rules in your favor, as they did on Monday, but we mean even if it's upheld. Yes? And Fitzgerald pointed that out. The judge was also confused by it. She said, that doesn't make an awful lot of sense to me. If the proceedings are concluded in your client's favor, they will still offer him asylum. If they're not, they will offer him asylum. Yes. And he cited Gary McKinnon, right? And Lori Love. They remain safe in UK jurisdiction. They can't go outside UK jurisdiction because then the US might grab them in another country with whom they have an extradition treaty. So, yeah, I explained this point over here. Then the court had a short 10-minute break. They resumed. And again, Fitzgerald made a brilliant point here, which I think a lot of people will try to gloss over, is that, Julian Assange was not having fun in the Ecuadorian embassy. I mean, if you've ever, look, man, that place is not made for living. It's a workspace, first of all. Okay. And it's in London. If you've seen London flats, well, you know. But nonetheless, that was not a pleasant experience. He couldn't get sunlight. He couldn't go outside. He was trapped in there for 7 goddamn years. I mean, I really don't see why I need to elaborate on that point. He was trapped in an apartment for 7 years. That's not a pleasant experience, period. Okay? So his point was he's not going to try that again. Not something he's ever likely to repeat. That's what Fitzgerald said. And then he elaborated on the offer from Mexico, as I just explained to you guys. And he highlighted the COVID lockdown. So comments from the government yesterday. I mean, I honestly can't even keep up with what the fuck the UK government is doing. I think a year ago already, I was covering the response, if you can even call it a response, or maybe lack of a response from the UK government. They're trying herd immunity, first of all. I mean, I don't know what is going on. I have no clue. I'm a fucking journalist. I cover politics. I don't even know what's going on with that lockdown. Every single goddamn day, they change something. They have 4 zones, and I don't know what's going on. It's just a complete dog's dinner. Nonetheless, the point. Sorry, I'm getting a bit sidetracked. The point is that Assange cannot have social visits. Do you understand? Because of the lockdown, it's already been the case. It's been the case. It's not, oh, this might happen. No, it's been the case. He hasn't been able to receive visitors. He's been prevented from seeing his family. This is insanely torturous. It goes without saying. The UK lockdown is going to prevent him further from being able to receive visitors. This is not something that's over, right? It's going to continue. Not to mention the fact that it's detrimental to his physical health. What if he catches it? What if he catches COVID? You get me? It's not just about receiving visitors, which is for his mental well-being. It's also the disease itself. But again, this is important. He can't have social visits, and he remains at risk. And I love Fitzgerald for saying this. Even people suspected of terrorism are given bail and house arrest. Exactly. This is what I've been ranting and raving about for 10 years. 10 years ago, Abu Qatada, he had this extradition battle with Jordan, and this guy's a Jordanian cleric, and they didn't want to extradite him to Jordan. Well, the UK wanted to, but the European Court of Human Rights prevented it because he was going to be tried for 2 cases of terrorism in Jordan, and the evidence in those cases was obtained under torture, right? So the European Court of Human Rights was like, well, we can't allow him to be extradited because that's using tainted evidence. And it's an unfair trial. It'll violate his right to due process. So the UK was just trying to get rid of him, and they let him out on house arrest. They let that motherfucker out of the same prison on house arrest. And as I said, they spent £500,000 a week putting him under surveillance. And not just him, by the way. You remember Pinochet, the dictator from Chile? Man, I had the article pulled up a second ago. Anyway, you know Pinochet. That guy was also allowed out on bail, remember? So, I mean, they're treating these bastards better than a journalist. And we all know why, because it's politically motivated. That's why. So I'm glad Fitzgerald brought that up. I wish they would have elaborated more on it. But, you know, it's not just Abu Qatada, it's others as well who are allowed out and afforded luxuries that Julian Assange is not. Anyway, that was pretty much it. Defense ceded, and the judge, she started giving her conclusion. Again, you have to keep in mind, this whole thing took about, I don't know, an hour and a half. I barely slept. I forgot to eat. I woke up and I just logged on and started covering. So I am not sure how long it was, but it was about an hour. So my point is, it was very quick. There was no recess except for that short 10-minute break. Everything went pretty quickly. And she immediately gave her conclusion, right? And she started going through the timeline. This is the first thing, right? She started going through the timeline of events. She said, oh, back in 2010, you know, Assange, he was given bail by the High Court. There were very significant reassurances given. Again, I wrote down, I transcribed as much as I could before it ended. Typing like a goddamn maniac. So, yeah, she said that Mr. Assange still has an incentive to abscond. Again, this is as accurate as I could type it out as fast as I could. Mr. Assange still has an incentive to abscond on these as yet unresolved proceedings. Okay? And she said, as a matter of fairness, the U.S. must be allowed to challenge my decision. Right? So they have 2 weeks from Monday when she gave her judgment to appeal the decision, if I recall correctly. And if Mr. Assange absconds, they will have lost their opportunity to do so, the United States. And again, as I said, she talks about the previous bail conditions. So the £200,000, for example, from 2010, the stringent bail, the stringent conditions previously imposed on him did nothing to prevent this, she says. Those who had put their trust in him in offering significant amounts of money and guaranteeing his return to court were let down and their money forfeited. Assange's health is being managed in Belmarsh prison. The protective factors are in her judgment, she says. And again, I mean, she acknowledged, I just read to you the part where she acknowledges he's at suicide risk, and he's on, record talking to the prison doctors about this. I don't know how she says his health is being managed. Yeah. Not well, apparently, is it? Not very well, because you just wrote in your goddamn judgment 2 days ago, right here, that this is very bad. He's not doing well. Okay, you wrote that over here. There we go. The care planning process for prisoners identified as being at risk of suicide or self-harm since his arrival at Her Majesty's Prison, Belmarsh. She knows this. So when she says, oh, his health is being managed, yeah, not very well, okay? And then she goes on to say, Mr. Assange has a large support network available should he choose to go, I'm not sure if she said underground or to go to ground, but her point was that if he wants to abscond bail, allegedly, he has a large support network available to him. And she said also, she said, the issues of resources illustrated by the prosecution, she refers here to Snowden. So she repeated the lies that, Assange is this worldwide criminal mob figure. He has vast amounts of resources available to him. He's smuggling Edward Snowden, out of other countries. He might be able to smuggle himself out. Basically that's what she was saying, essentially, right? She said the vast amount of resources illustrated by the prosecution. You pay attention to that. Illustrated by the prosecution. She's agreeing fully with them. In the issue, Assange and WikiLeaks in the arrangements, and she says in their arrangements to assist Mr. Snowden's flight to Russia. No, his flight was to Latin America. But I don't know if she was paying attention. Anyway, she said that she accepts the COVID figures. She said that. I accept COVID figures that the prison just gave. So 2 prisoners are isolated Yeah, and one is in hospital recovering from COVID. So 3 prisoners total. That's what they're saying. And she accepts that. The judge accepted that. This is an email that was sent to the prosecution from the prison last night at 22:47. I don't know about that. And again, this doesn't make any mention of the staff. There's 80 people plus working at Belmarsh prison who have COVID. She didn't make any mention of that. She said this demonstrates the prison is managing the illness in a responsible manner. Listen, lady, madam, Your Honor, I was there at the prison. There's the video of me with the guard. That motherfucker was not wearing a mask. The people I saw out there were not wearing masks. Don't lie. I'm directly quoting her. She said, this demonstrates the prison is managing the illness in a responsible manner. No, the fuck it is not. I was there. You can't lie to me. Look, I'm going to show you the video. This is me. I'm doing my own thing. I'm in front of the goddamn jail. And this motherfucker walks up to me. Look at him. Is he wearing a mask? Look at him. He came up and fucking like talked to me without a mask. That, again, that's just one person. Not to mention the guards who were going out at lunchtime. None of them wear a mask and just no social distancing, nothing. She goes on to say, the judge, therefore, notwithstanding the package of conditions offered on Julian Assange's behalf, so meaning the GPS monitoring, the cash deposit, the assurances that, she ruled in his favor, the health reasons, the COVID, all of it. She said, I'm satisfied that there are substantial grounds for believing that if Mr. Assange were to be released today, he would not surrender to court to face the appeal proceedings. The remand is therefore in custody. And that was it. She sent that man back to Belmarsh prison. She sent that man back to solitary confinement. She sent that journalist who exposed U.S. war crimes back to a Category A maximum security men's prison. After ruling that he should not be extradited, the same woman, in the span of 48 hours. Now, you want to look at that and tell me that this is not political? Really? It's always been political. This has been political 10 years ago. This has been political since the beginning. It's political today. It will be political in 100 years. I want people to remember this. I want people in 100 years and 200 years, when they are looking at the case of Julian Assange, I want them to know what the US empire did. I want them to remember what the UK did to aid them. I want them to look at this injustice system of the United Kingdom, right? Because to say that the United Kingdom or the United States have a justice system is an oxymoron. These people, these countries, the United States, the UK, they are persecuting Julian Assange because he exposed their dirty laundry. He exposed their war crimes. He exposed how they are murdering civilians and journalists in Iraq, how they are kidnapping and torturing innocent people, how they are carrying out acts of rendition, how they are pressuring other governments to stop prosecuting CIA agents and other people who have not just violated their own allies' sovereignty, but committed war crimes and torture. That is why they're going after this man. He embarrassed them. He exposed them. That's why. I want people to remember that. This political persecution of Assange and what we're witnessing today, right now, in 2021 and 2020 and all the years before, prior. This is disgusting. Even when she rules in his favor, and again, there were all the grounds to rule in his favor, not just the medical ones, she still manages to twist it against him in 2 days. Bullshit. This is bullshit. And when I was standing outside the Old Bailey and I gave that fucking speech and I pointed at that goddamn building and I told you that this is an institution of imperialism. This is a mockery. I repeat those and I echo those comments again today. This is a joke. Whether you're standing outside the Old Bailey or Westminster Magistrates Court, this is not a justice system. This is an organized witch hunt being perpetrated by the United States at the behest of the United States. This man does not belong in custody or in remand, let alone in Belmarsh prison. End of fucking story. He has been let go. He's been set free by the same goddamn judge 2 days ago. What the fuck is he doing in that goddamn jail cell again? What is he doing there? Fuck you. I'm sorry, you know, if you're not angry about this, I don't know what the fuck is going to make you angry. I really don't. Go watch the collateral murder video and come back and tell me if you feel the same. You know what they... Sorry, man, I need a sip of something. Again, I have not eaten and I'm really pissed off and... Excuse me. So, I'd just like to read you some comments here. This is from Glenn Greenwald. There are no charges pending against Julian Assange in the UK. A UK judge denied the United States request to extradite him, the only place where charges are pending. Despite this, the judge just ruled he must remain imprisoned in a COVID-ridden high-security prison while US appeals. This shows how authoritarian the British judiciary is. The only thing the US cares about is keeping Assange in a cage, silenced, and disappeared. This gives them the best of all worlds. He stays in prison with no need to prove he's guilty of anything. That's despotic. And here Glenn was disproving again this myth about Snowden, which we looked at earlier, right? And then he was kind enough to refer people to my reporting and Kevin's reporting. He said to see the details of today's proceeding, go and follow timelines. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Glenn. And I completely agree with his comments. I mean, 100%. This is insane. This is really another level of dystopian. I mean, we're witnessing this in real time. Literally witnessing this in real time. I truly hope that people remember this and that this changes, because if right now this is allowed to happen, what does that mean in the future? I'm not just talking about the legal precedent, the moral precedent. What does that mean? Like, are we not evolving as a species? This is unacceptable. The crimes that WikiLeaks exposed, the crimes that Julian Assange exposed are so heinous. No person with a shred of moral integrity, with a fiber of conscience can look at them and say that, oh yeah, the person who told me about this should go to jail. No one can do that. This is unconscionable. I do not accept this treatment. I do not accept this. This is a kangaroo court. And I'd like to echo the comments as well of Professor Merendi from the University of Tehran. He said, nothing has really changed. Julian Assange will continue to be held as a political prisoner in the United Kingdom. Amidst Western media silence, he will continue to be mistreated and tortured. Assange is guilty of exposing United States and NATO war crimes in countries such as Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan. Indeed, that's virtually his only crime, right? That's his crime in their eyes. That's his affront upon the US empire, the UK. That's what it's all about, man. Make no mistake. I'm telling you. All right? Oh, if the victims could speak. They would not even let the victims speak, right? Ironically. Khaled al-Masri was tortured by the CIA. They prevented him from testifying. And he's alive. Never mind the people that have been murdered by these wars. Oh, if they could speak. If only they could speak. So I'd like to show you something here. I'd like to play you, just to conclude, I'd like to play you the statements from Fidel Narvaez, the Ecuadorian consul, outside the court today.
He's not serving any sentence. He doesn't have anything to answer to justice as it stands now. Why is he kept in prison? So I understand this is not the end of the game. This is not the end of the road. There will be an appeal for today's decision, and let's hope that a superior court will have more sense of justice.
In the meantime, he will be in Belmarsh.
He will remain where he is, in Belmarsh prison.
In isolation.
In isolation, in an awful conditions, very oppressive conditions. This maximum security prison is called the British Guantanamo. As we know, there is even an outbreak of COVID. So it's absolutely unbelievable and very disappointing.
Thank you.
And, you know, I also saw Kristen Hernapson from chief editor from WikiLeaks also giving a statement, and Stella Morris very brief statement as well. I can't really imagine what she's going through, what Assange is going through. I mean, this is really, you know, like Fidel just said, we can only hope that the High Court will repeal today's decision, because I'm not talking about Monday's judgment. The U.S. is taking that to the High Court for appeal, but we're talking about today's bail hearing. Okay, let's hope that gets overturned and Assange can be let out. This is unacceptable. This is I'm, you know, the persecution is just, I'm at a loss for words. There's only so much you can say about it, you know. And look at this. They tried to harass the Team Assange. Again, I saw a lot of people, I recognize them from London. This is Eric. Eric is 92 years old. Eric is awesome. I ate pizza with this guy. And they arrested him just now outside the court. They arrested Eric, who's 92 years old. This guy's out almost every week protesting for Assange. Do you see why I get offended when I hear people like Anna Kasparian saying, "Oh, I did it so much for Assange"? Go and fuck yourself. This man is a G. Look at this. Look at this nonsense. Look at them. They got nothing better to do. This is what they're doing with their time.
Have you no respect? He's 92 years old. What's wrong with you? You absolute fascist scum.
Eric, can you
He's 92 years old. He's gonna die. You're gonna kill him. He's 92 years old.
They're fucking shameless. Shame on you, man. Fucking shame on you. Look at this. This is the United Kingdom 2021, right? Let's send a journalist to maximum security prison, you know, at the behest of a murderous empire. Let's arrest a 92-year-old outside because he didn't like that we're, you know, carrying out the wishes of war criminals, and he actually stood up for something. Yeah, let's arrest him and take him out. What is wrong with you? Look how many of them. This is what they're doing with taxpayer money? You just complained in the court about taxpayer money. This is what you do it? Bastards. I love Eric because he always wears a keffiyeh too, a silok, you know, the Palestinian scarf. This is degrading. This is insulting. I mean, shameful, really. You want to here's another second glimpse, if you needed any more, about what UK justice is, so-called justice. Wow. So that concludes the bail hearing. If you have any questions, I'll try and take them, but I have to run because I've an interview with Niels Meltzer, the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture. I have an interview with him shortly, and then I'm supposed to go on Katie Halper's show tonight as well. And I also have to do a full report for television about this entire judgment from Monday and the bail hearing. So I'm a bit short on time today and sleep, but nonetheless, I'll try and take as many of your questions as I can. By the way, just a quick reminder, we have 600 people watching. Please make sure you hit the like button because of the algorithm. There's only 377 likes. Let's get those numbers up to the same figure. And there's a donation here from Denise. Thank you very much, Denise. Denise says, "Free this man. Assange is damaged physically, emotionally, and mentally. He is a threat to no one." I agree completely. Again, a journalist in Category A prison, it tells you everything you need to know about how it's politically charged. Not to mention the nature of what he published. Based from Mohammed, thank you for the donation. Says, "Journalists in Norway are silent. It's incredible. Journalism is dead." Not just in Norway, everywhere. They're all silent. They're all silent, aren't they? It's shameful. It really is shameful. It's completely disgusting what they're doing, man. Oh boy. So we have a donation here, but there's no note attached, from Karsten. Thank you very much for the donation. I appreciate it. So before I go, I just want to ask you to please support the show if you can. Support independent journalism. This is the PayPal and the CashApp and the Venmo. If you want it, you can just scan it with your camera. It'll be really greatly appreciated, and it lets me continue what I do. And there's also a Patreon. I'll post a link in the live chat. I'll post the links to all these things. And I really thank you so much for your support. It really means a lot. So, you know, thanks to you guys, for example, thanks to you guys, I was able to actually go to London. I was able to actually attend the hearing and cover it. And not to mention the activists who, you know, were queuing up in the morning. God bless them. Team Assange. So thanks to you guys, I was actually able to go there. I was actually able to go to London, right? So it really literally makes a difference. So I really appreciate that so much. Thank you. And the Patreon is right here. So I'm going to drop the links, and that's it for now. I'll come back soon with another live stream about any updates, and yeah, man, just keep them in your thoughts. You know, this is really not just again about today. It's been 10 years, right? That this has been going on. You have to keep that in mind. I think the judge in her decision, when she's talking about things that happened 10 years ago, you know, she's saying, oh, he absconded bail in 2012. And, you know, despite reassurances back then, he jumped bail. Yeah, it's very convenient for her to cite that even and say, oh, he's going to jump bail allegedly, while also conveniently forgetting that not only the conditions have changed, which she agrees with in her judgment, but also this man has been persecuted for 10 fucking years. Like you're talking to us about events from 2010, right? So you're fully aware this has been going on for 11 years. Yeah, you're fully aware of that, obviously. Do you not think that must factor into your decision? You know, unbelievable, right? Anyway, I thank you guys very much for your support. Thank you for tuning in. Please share this video, get the word out. And yeah, thanks so much. That's all I'm going to say for now. I'll catch you later. Thank you very much. Take care.